Muy bienvenidos todos. Estamos nada más y nada menos que acompañados de Priscilla Shrirer. Ella es la actriz de la película La Forja, que por supuesto representa a una madre que ora y que ama a su hijo y a través de ese amor logra acercarlo más a Dios. Priscilla, thank you so much for sharing a few minutes with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a privilege to just talk about this amazing movie, and I want to dive right into your role as a mom, Cynthia. So we see her in the movie confronting her son, and we see her gather the community of faith to pray for her son.
Yeah.
And my question, and probably the question that many people in the audience have, is when do we do what?
Well, when somebody figures it out, they can let me know.
Okay.
Man, parenting is hard, isn't it? Because you're constantly having to say to the Lord, is it the time for this? Is it the time for that? How should I say what it is that I need to say to my child? So one of the things in the Forge movie that's so important is this message of discipleship or mentorship. And in your question, that's why I think in my life, I've had moms that are about 10 years down the road than me. Their children are about 10 years older. And I've been able to go to them when I'm not sure. How do I deal with a 3-year-old that's dealing with fear or insecurity? That might be different than how I deal with a 17-year-old who's dealing with that same issue.
Right.
And so having wisdom from a mom that's already been there and done that and is able to give counsel, I do think there is a time for tough love. But that tough love has to be laced with affirmation and encouragement.
Right.
And figuring out that balance is the constant struggle, I think, of being a parent, and why having someone to disciple you as you do it is so important.
Well, the movie talks about discipleship, yes, but he also talks about evangelism. And he also talks about forgiveness.
Yes, I mean, so many layers.
Yes. Which one resonates more with you personally, and why?
Yes, I think one of the layers there is surrender, full and complete surrender. You see Joshua Moore, who is the mentor, so he's discipling somebody else, but you see himself talking about how there are things in his life that he's had to lay down, not because they are sinful things. It's because he realized they had first place, that they were more important than his relationship with the Lord. I think that's going to make a lot of believers in the theater go, wait a minute, I never thought about the fact that the question I should be asking is not necessarily or not only whether or not something is sin. The question is whether or not this thing has taken more priority than Jesus. Am I more devoted to that hobby or that perspective or that ambition or that resource? Am I more devoted? Am I more in love with it than I am with him? In that case, it's sin to me because it's become an idol. Right. And I think this movie is going to make a lot of Christians who are going to heaven sit up straight and wonder and talk to the Lord about whether or not they have been fully surrendered to him in every area of their lives.
Well, when we talk about the church and we talk about believers watching the film, how does the Forge equip the church in these issues that we're sharing?
Well, I think one of the ways that he equips the church is showing them and modeling for them an example of how they can begin to implement this right in the body of local believers that they have there. Kind of like War Room did for prayer. People actually thought, I can write down things on Post-it notes and put it on the wall. And they started doing it. Yes. People had prayer closet. We've gotten thousands and thousands of letters of people who, even if they didn't clear out a whole closet, they got a picture in their mind of putting pictures up on, or putting prayers up on their refrigerator door or the backside of the closet door. And then they were praying more strategically. What this movie does is model how to disciple, that there's a Forge group that, as particularly as men, because women are more naturally relational and we talk about our stuff more with each other. But for men to see, we can just each, as businessmen, as men who are in different areas of industry and ministry, we can come together and each one of us just bring another young man with us for the journey and let them hear us share things with them that aren't just about their relationship with God, but it's about how they can excel in business or an area of their interest and how to make sure that the Lord is incorporated in every aspect of their practical practical everyday living. So I think that this movie is just going to show them an example of how they can begin to do it right there in their churches.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to ask you a question and drawing a little bit from your experience as a mom, as a teacher of the Word of God, and obviously as Cynthia in the movie. You saw your son go through this really difficult time of forgiving his dad.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to see that in the movie. Can you share some practical ways for people to heal and forgive? Or
Yes.
forgive or heal?
Yes. Well, the beginning of it is remembering that Christ had to forgive us. It's actually quite an arrogant thing when you think about it. When any of us harbor unforgiveness for someone else, when we ourselves don't deserve to have been forgiven by a great, graceful, holy God who has such a high standard that none of us can reach it. And yet he says, my grace is sufficient for you. Why wouldn't we extend that same grace and mercy to others? So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying that's a starting point to remember that none of us deserves to be forgiven by God, and he forgave us anyway. He died on the cross for us anyway. After that, walking out forgiveness is a tough process when you're still dealing with wounds that in some cases the person may not want to apologize for what they've done, or they can't. Maybe they've passed away. They're not even here anymore. So then sin, unforgiveness becomes a prison for you. The other person's moving on with their life, but you've imprisoned yourself. So walking that out practically is where good godly counsel comes in, whether it's in the form of therapy, whether it's in the form of a discipler, someone like in the case of the film, Joshua walking with him and saying, here are some practical things, writing a letter to him, talking to the Lord about it specifically. So many people I know have done very practical, tangible things to just be symbolic of the forgiveness they're offering that person in their heart. And so I think making sure you have somebody to really walk through tangible steps with you. Forgiveness is hard and it's a journey, but it's a choice that by God's Spirit we can make every day so we can move forward in our lives knowing that Christ has forgiven us as well.
And we see that perfectly well in the movie The Forge. Priscilla, thank you so much for sharing a few minutes with us.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.